Welcome to the Stochastic MLB Strategy Show, doubling up as Adam's farewell party at 10 a.m. in the morning here, Central, I guess 11 a.m. Adam's time. We're saying goodbye to Adam for a couple months today. We'll have to we'll talk throughout the show about what Adam is planning to do with a couple months off. But of course, you can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. You can find Adam on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And this show is sponsored by Prize Picks. We'll talk a bit about Prize Picks. I just made a video on some of the best picks right now on Prize Picks. We actually have a lot of very, very good bets, good picks currently on Prize Picks. Go check out the video I just made on the Odd Chopper channel as well if you're planning on playing some Prize Picks today. But we'll talk about Prize Picks a little bit more later on. And if you haven't yet done so, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit the notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. Adam, are you excited for a couple months off?
Yeah. Also, like I'm excited. I'm also like, I'm gonna be so bored in like 10 days.
Yeah, no, I think you probably will be pretty bored in 10 days. I mean, who knows? Maybe you're just going to love it. A worst case scenario for the rest of us is that you never come back after this. You decide, wow, this is so nice, not being in front of a camera.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I don't even know what that situation looks like because like even if like Josh was joking the other day, he's like, yeah, well, watch you like win the million week 1 of NFL. Even if that happens, like I want something to do.
Right. True. And like a million is not enough to retire on. Like
Right,
people think of it as
exactly.
being so much money. Then it's like 40%, goes right to taxes.
Right.
So
It's enough for me to make a stupid decision where I'm like, oh yeah, I don't need a job. And then in a year be like, oh shit, what did I do?
I think you sort of have the dream scenario right now. Cause I think anybody who ever like is working a 9 to 5 and wins $100,000 is like, man, I would love to just like take a couple months off work. Like I'm still going to be way ahead if I take a couple months off work, but like in real jobs, you can't do that. Like your work is not going to let you just take a couple months off. You knew, after you won, that you are going to take some time off, or sorry, that you have the company's go ahead to take some time off if you want it. And then of course you won more than $100,000. You've won a lot of money recently in some big GPPs. So it's kind of the dream scenario where like it's sanctioned by the company you work for to just like, yeah, you can take a couple months off if you want it.
Yeah, and like perfect timing. And like also for me, NBA season is like the super busy time where like I'm at my desk all day. And so it's just like, yeah, okay, I can take rest of the summer, early fall, chill, be fine, like get a mental break, and then come back for NBA. Like it worked out perfectly for me. But yeah, not actually going anywhere.
Yeah, people are asking in chat, where is Adam going? Is Adam leaving the company? Adam's not leaving the company. He's just taking a couple months off. He'll be back for NBA season. Are you just started coming back right at the start of NBA season, or are you going to be here at all for some NFL before that?
No, I'll be here for NBA.
Okay.
I only do like one NFL show a week. So
if you don't win any big contests, like let's say 50,000 or more, if you don't win any big contest between now and when you come back, how much of all of this money that you've just won will be left?
Not much.
You're gonna be playing a lot of DFS in the meantime.
Oh yeah, I'm still playing. So that's the one thing that I'm like, maybe I won't be that bored because like my first thought was like after 2 days of the All-Star break, I'm always just like, holy shit, this needs to end. But there's no DFS, so
Right.
like at least I'll still have that. But yeah, no, that's kind of the catch-22 is like, I have a bunch of free time now, but it's like I have to manage my money better.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's a thing people don't really like. You can lose a lot of money really quickly if you are like maxing out all of the main contests. And then of course, if you play high stakes, you can lose it even quicker. So yeah, no, I believe you are going to manage your money wisely. You're going to save, spend within your means, and you're still going to have most of it by the time you come back.
Yeah, you don't know me very well.
No, I do, because you're just like me, and yeah, I would lose most of it if I don't win anything.
Yeah, somebody texted me. I told a friend what I was doing, and she was like, oh, "Okay, like where are we going on vacation?" And I was like, "Nah, I'm not going on vacation anywhere like special unless I get like another big win." And then within 24 hours, I was like, "Yeah, so I was looking at X, Y, Z, like right over here."
So I'll ask one more question before we get into. So we're going to do both the early slate and the main slate for those of you who are interested in talking some MLB DFS. Do you have any big plans? Have you come down on any like vacation plans? Any like big exciting things that you think that you're already planning on doing?
No, I mean I have like a list of cities that either I know I like and I haven't been to in a while, or that I would like to go to. But no idea if I'm going to go or when I'm going to go.
Mark Curry says, I knew this would happen when Adam met that 55-year-old billionaire cougar woman. Was she 55? I heard part of
she was
story.
55.
And has anything come of that?
No, I never reached back out.
All right. I suppose maybe that's a personal thing that you wouldn't want to answer anybody. All right. Anybody? Let me see if we have any other question. We had chat. Chat has a lot of questions. We should probably talk a little bit of MLB. We can talk about your vacation.
That's a very good yes, Einstein. That is certainly on the short list.
I missed it. What did I?
I was going to end. I'm going to end up
3 weeks in San Diego.
Yeah. Definitely on the short list.
I've never been to San Diego. It's one of those places that it's probably a lot better in my head than it is in reality, because I just think
it's better in reality.
Really, San Diego. I'll check it out sometime. I think I applied to schools there at one point. I don't know. I at one point was hoping to move out there. Just beautiful weather, Southern California.
If I could live anywhere, like if I didn't have family commitments and shit, like in Maryland, it would be San Diego or Nashville.
Interesting. Maybe I'll think. My wife and I have also been talking about taking 1 to 2 months away from Minnesota in winters at some point, maybe this year, maybe next year, whatever, starting to winter in somewhere warm. And that is one of the places that we have talked about going. I actually reached out to one of the Stochastic guy, Chris 4165 lives out in San Diego, and he's like a real estate agent, so I know he would be good for finding places potentially. So I reached out to him, but I don't know how realistic it is.
Perfect weather, like 350 days a year.
Yeah, seems amazing.
75 degrees on the water, not humid.
Yeah, it does sound like perfect to me. And there's stuff too, right? Like it's also like a big city where there's fun. All right, we will talk about we'll start by talking about the early slate, and we'll also do the main slate. So plenty of games to get through. We'll continue talking about Adam's vacation throughout, but we should get started. First game of the early slate, Adam, is Houston at New York. We've got Justin Verlander on the mound for the Astros, Nestor Cortez for the Yankees. Any interest in these pitchers?
I forgot we were talking about baseball. Yeah, somewhat. I mean, Justin Verlander, 9,400, taking on the Yankees, 3.9 implied run total. That looks pretty good. Obviously Yankee Stadium is risky always, but Verlander coming in with the second highest top 2 pitcher percentage, 33% ownership, slightly edging out Andrew Abbott by a couple tenths of a point to be the highest owned pitcher. He looks good on this slate. On the other side, Cortez only getting 5%. He's only 7,800, which is interesting because generally he's more expensive than that, but it is a really tough matchup with Houston. He hasn't been, as good this year. Also feels like he hasn't pitched in forever. Only getting 5% ownership. We have him with a 12% chance of being the top 2 pitcher, but Verlander's the one that looks like a priority here. Aaron Judge is in the lineup today, so the lineup's obviously better, but still not a very good Yankees lineup overall.
Okay. And most of what I'm seeing in chat is people saying that you should just come to where they are. Bro, inviting you to Tulsa. So if you want to go to Tulsa, you can go check that out. I've been watching it.
My list in order was San Diego, Nashville, Tulsa.
Right, Tulsa right up there. Flight to Jacksonville, Logan says. I've watched TV show Tulsa King, and it seems kind of cool. But
Jacksonville's not far off. I do like Savannah a lot, which is only like an hour away.
Eric Traub says, come to Ann Arbor. My brother lives in Ann Arbor. I saw, but Jonah Schifrin I saw in chat, and I just wanted to shout him out. I met Jonah a couple weeks back at the Fantasy Golf World Championship, the DraftKings event here in Minnesota. I went as a guest and got to meet Jonah Schifrin. I lost his comment now, though. Something about you're probably going to be playing a lot of best ball. Yeah. You're taking a break from content. What about best ball? Yeah, you're going to be doing a lot of best ball.
I have more time for best ball now.
Yeah. Beautiful. You're gonna be able to max out all those contests. All right, tons of people suggesting coming to them, but we'll get back. I got to stay on track. Yankees or Astros? Any interest in the bats here?
More so in Houston. Good offense, better offense. 4.6 implied run total in Yankee Stadium. Nice home run park. They are currently sitting 5th in top stack percentage, middle of the pack in stack score. They're relatively expensive, but you can get to Cortez a bit. He's allowed a 190 expected ISO to righties this year, sub 100 to lefties. You do have a solid Yankees bullpen behind them, so that's a little bit discouraging, but happy to get to Houston. They look pretty good. They are just relatively expensive. I think the case for the Yankees on the other side would be that they are playing in Yankee Stadium. They are very cheap, and you do get negative correlation against a 33% owned Verlander. It is only a 6-game slate, so you do have less opportunity cost than you would on an 11, 12 game slate. I've noticed recently, for whatever reason, it hasn't been like a conscious decision. I've been stacking against the popular pitchers a bit more often. I think it's mostly just that we've had some smaller slates, and we've also had the most popular pitchers where they're good but not great, like Verlander is. So wouldn't surprise me if I'm getting to some Yankees just for the negative correlation here. But in terms of chances of success, only a 3% chance to be in the top stack, about 4% aggregate ownership. So it's more, when they do well, you have a pretty clear path to be competing at the top of tournaments, but it's not going to come through all that often.
Okay. How would you rank for that game?
Verlander, Houston, Yankees, Cortez.
Tolga A asks, who will take over Adam's part at Stokastic? I know that I'm going to be doubling down on my shit posting on Twitter. I don't know who's going to take over the analysis. No, my biggest concern was, so I learned about Adam taking this time off when I learned that I was going to be put on morning strategy shows, which are earlier than ever now. It's a nightmare, but at least for this coming week, we got Laffy and Josh doing the MLB strategy show. I think Greg is going to be doing some Sims videos, so we're all going to be pitching in trying to cover some of Adam's stuff, but we can't fully replace Adam. Luckily he'll be back in a couple months.
Yeah. And also one thing to add to Cortez, I hadn't had it pulled up yet, but he threw 49 pitches in his most recent rehab start in 4 innings. He was supposed to go one more rehab start and got scratched. He was only expected to throw around 60 pitches there. So I don't expect him. I don't know that it's a hard 60 count here. Like it could be 75, but I don't expect him to have enough of a leash that I would want to roster him.
Does that make you like the Astros any better?
Not really. The Yankees have a good bullpen, and bullpen games in general aren't that appealing. So either way, I think it's kind of, if you're playing Houston, it's because they're in Yankee Stadium and they're a good offense more so than any particular matchup.
Okay. All right. Justin Swartz says, so basically this is his last baseball show. Yeah, for this season, this is going to be Adam's final baseball show.
I'll probably end up doing a best ball show with you at some point, but.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, I was thinking that actually, yes, since I learned that you were leaving, I was like, oh shit, Adam had said he would come on for a best ball show. Yeah, if you're still willing to do it, I'll reach out. I would love to do have you on the best ball channel at some point. All right, we can move on to next game. Tampa at Detroit. Aaron Savale on the mound for the Rays. Tariq Skubal for the Tigers. Any interest in these pitchers?
Skubal's got good stuff. He's 7,700, but obviously a really tough matchup with Tampa Bay makes him a little bit less appealing, but that price tag still looks pretty nice. 23% ownership, 19% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher. The Tigers have been pretty cautious with him in terms of pitch count, but he did throw 82 pitches in 5 innings 2 starts ago, 78 in 4 2/3 last start. So there are definitely concerns over how deep into the game he can go. I wouldn't bet on him going more than 5 innings. So the upside is somewhat capped, but he is a good strikeout pitcher. He actually has the highest strikeout percentage on the slate. Limited sample this year, has only made 5 starts, but 32.1% K percentage. He is a solid pitcher. 4.3 implied run total for Tampa Bay. With it being a 6-game slate, he's certainly playable, but do keep in mind that he probably is throwing like 80, 85 pitches here.
Okay. Any interest in the bats in this game?
Yeah, Tampa Bay, always at least somewhat interested. It's a really good offense. They aren't in the best park. They don't have the best matchup, but still a 7% chance of being the top stack, 7% ownership. Actually 9% chance of being the top value stack. They're a little bit less expensive than usual because you have Curtis Mead, who they just called up, hitting 6th, 2K at third base. You have Manny Margot in this lineup at 2,300. Ramirez batting 5th at 3,400. There's no Brandon Lau. Maybe he pinch hits later. That's certainly a risk when you have the left-handed pitcher starting, but him not being in the lineup weakens it, but also makes it a little bit less expensive. So getting to Tampa Bay shouldn't be that difficult. Getting to the Tigers on the other side against Savali, a lot more difficult sell. They're dead last in top stack percentage, getting 3% ownership. Savali's pulling 28% ownership at 8,500. I don't have any issues with that. It's a good spot, 3.7 implied run total. It's a higher price tag than I really love on Savali, given that he's not a very good strikeout pitcher, but he's a good enough pitcher at preventing runs. He has a good matchup, and you do certainly have the possibility that the Rays have already adjusted something that will get him more strikeouts. We saw it with the Dodgers and Lance Lynn. I think we sort of saw it with Jack Flaherty and the Orioles, but Flaherty had been there for like 36 hours, so I'm not really sure how much they changed yet. I know he was throwing his cutter a little bit more, but like Lance Lynn, I think entirely changed his pitch mix from what he was doing in Chicago. Tampa Bay is another very analytically heavy team where they've had Savali for 5 days now or whatever. They very easily could have just been like, hey, we're not changing anything mechanically, but throw this more, throw that less, and you see a better strikeout pitcher. So there is some sort of unknown upside potential with Savali as well.
Okay. And Same Name says, Neil just ignoring Savali. Hey, man, I asked the question, what do you think of the pitchers? I zone out for a while. Adam pauses, and then I ask him what he thinks of the bats. I don't ignore anybody. I just ask pitchers and then bats. How would you rank the 4 sides of this game, Adam?
Savali, Skubal, Tampa, Detroit. And yeah, the Savali thing was my fault. I started with Skubal and then kind of just forgot about Savali.
Okay, good. Glad you take ownership of that. Because I kind of thought it. Actually, I was like, I feel like he just went over one pitcher, but then I just went with my usual.
Yeah, I said so much about Skubal that in my head I was just like, okay, I'm done with pitching. That was the correct amount of time.
All right. Atlanta at Chicago. We've got Bryce Elder on the mound for the Braves, Javier Assad for the Cubs. Any interest in these pitchers?
Definitely not in an 8K Javier Assad against the Braves. I don't know how the hell that happened. $8,300 Bryce Elder, not exciting at all. He's getting 9% ownership. If you want to use him as a pivot to somebody like Skubal or Savali in lineups here and there, that's fine. 15.5% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher compared to 21% for Savali, 19% for Skubal, and he's getting, half to 1/3 the ownership. So clearly it's a spot where, he's not a 2-1 or 3-1 dog to those guys, but in most lineups, you're going to prefer playing them because they project better. You can use him as a pivot here and there, but pretty tough to make a strong case for him. He started out the year getting very, very lucky in terms of run prevention. He hasn't been great at getting strikeouts all season long. 17.8% K percentage, 4.23 xFIP is fine. It's still a full run worse than his 3.18 ERA. For a while, I think the ERA had been like sub 2 or sub 3. So you're starting to see him regress a bit, but 270 BABIP, 78% left on base percentage. He's been pretty lucky this year. He's fine average pitcher, but still relatively expensive.
Okay. What do you think about the bats in this game?
Braves look great. Javier Assad, limited time in the majors this year, only a 157 expected ISO to righties, 116 to lefties. Going back to last year, similar, 126 to righties, 149 to lefties. He hasn't been bad at all at giving up power, but this is the Braves. They always are going to look great. They have so much power in this lineup. Assad doesn't get a ton of strikeouts, so the Braves are going to be putting the ball in play. We have them second in top stack percentage behind Cincinnati. We have them middle of the pack in stack score just because they are so expensive. Once again, it's just going to be very difficult to stack 1 through 5. But if you are willing to use the bottom of the order, you can turn them into an expensive but not, overly expensive stack if you're just willing to mix in some Michael Harris, Ozuna, Rosario, whatever it may be. So if you can get to Atlanta, great. As far as the other side, the Cubs have been really good lately. They've been really popular. Not a great matchup against Elder. Again, he's a decent pitcher, just doesn't strike out a lot of guys. Only a 132 expected ISO to lefties, 133 to righties, 132 to lefties, 132 to righties. I don't know why that was so hard to say, but you do have some value with the Cubs, and you certainly have some upside. Ian Happ still only $3,500. We just got their lineup. Talkman leading off at $3,600. Bellinger having a pretty lucky year, but does still have home run upside. Clearly, he's $5,200. Swanson's been great at $4,700. Morel's got power at $5K. So the Cubs look okay. Certainly not as good as the Braves do, but 7.5% ownership, 6% chance of being the top stack. No real problems there.
How would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
Atlanta, Chicago, Elder, Assad. As far as the weather in Chicago, if the slate started right now, I'm playing it, but definitely keep an eye on that.
Okay. Good thinking. Phildo76 asks, what's your go-to roster construction for smaller slates like the 3-game morning slate today? I've had a lot of success with 4-3-1 for larger slates, but haven't had much luck in smaller slates. I assume he means FanDuel because I don't think there is an early 3-game slate on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, if it's FanDuel, for DraftKings, I prominently play DraftKings. I still generally go like 5-2, 5-3 stacks. I do mix in some more, 4-4 and 4-3 on the shorter slates just to get different combinations, but I don't change a whole lot. And then on FanDuel, it'll be the same thing. Like primarily, I'm going to be going 4-4 and 4-3. I'd mix in some more like 4-2-2 on shorter slates.
Yeah, I do. I leave it a little bit more open on shorter slates. Like a 3-game slate, I might do on DraftKings. Even I might do like a 4-2 and just let it fill in the rest. That kind of thing on 3-game or shorter slates. I think that's where I start getting a little bit funky sometimes. But I have noticed a lot of pros like Adam who just play their regular lineups, like 5-3s, 5-0s, that kind of thing too. So maybe I'm overthinking if I go into smaller stacks on shorter
So
slates.
this is one where I don't spend as much time as I probably should in lineup study. I'm sure I could have cut down some downswings at times if I spent more time there. But I'm really prone to tinkering, and so I tried not to look at too much stuff because then I'll just do it more.
Right.
But I had kind of been like earlier in the season, I was kind of going back like, how do I want to structure my stacks? And I just pulled up Yodakow's lineups, and everything he played was either 5-3 or 5-2, and I was like, okay, that answers that question.
Yeah, it's interesting because like Yodakow though is like if you listen to his pod with Levitan, it sounds like he's not like doing sims or anything all that special. So I mean, he is still like clearly one of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
So maybe we should just be copying him anyway.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to something like that, like, and we've talked about this a lot. People ask like, what settings do you use in Fantasy Cruncher, blah blah blah, and all of it comes back to like whatever works in your process is the right answer. It all works together. But something like that, like I'm not trying to recreate. I'm not like running my process and looking at what Yoda gets to and then saying like, oh shit, I was wrong because I played different teams than Yoda. Let me make changes. Right. But something as simple as like, is he running 5-3, 5-2, or is he mixing in a bunch of 4-3 and stuff like that? When when I see he's just playing 5-3, 5-2, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm fine just copying that.
Okay. Yeah, it's good good thinking. Did you play the Orioles last night? I saw you were near the top of the contest that I was in. I was in the $3.
Yeah, I had
Astros.
The Pirates were my highest owned stack, so that went well. I had a lot of Mariners, so I finished 9th in the $15. Had a couple very live teams that just didn't quite get there thanks to Tom Murphy and Shohei Ohtani, but no, I didn't get to the Orioles.
I played a lot of the Orioles, and I had one lineup that was looking fairly competitive at a time when Ryan Mountcastle got up to bat with 2 on, and I was like, oh man, if he hits a home run now, I'm very live. And then he struck out. So
yeah, that's how my Mariners went. Tom Murphy was like the differentiator for me compared to like the other Mariners stacks at the top. And he got up, bases loaded, 1 out, 2-0 count, ended up striking out. Comes up later, runner on first, 3-1 count, strikes out again. And then Ohtani comes up. This one would have been really fun, especially because it would have pissed Josh off so much. For anybody that doesn't know, Ohtani has cost Josh like $60K in the last month, probably in his final at bats of games. And he's cost me like $20K also. But he came up with 2 on in the bottom of the 9th, where if he hit a walk-off home run, it would have won me the tournament. And so I'm like, oh, this would just be so perfect. But he struck out on 3 pitches.
That would have been so good. Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, like it would have been so perfect. I was like, this might actually happen. Like Josh could run that bad where Ohtani just walks it off, gives me $50K, and I get to talk shit to Josh
for your whole time off. Yeah, that would have been beautiful. All right, Miami at Texas. George Soriano on the mound for the Marlins. John Gray for the Rangers. Any interest in these pitchers?
Soriano, I'm pretty sure is a bullpen game. I know I went to a Orioles Marlins game where he pitched like 3 innings in relief. Yeah, he's thrown 54 pitches is the most he's thrown recently. 61 pitches is his high watermark for the season. That was back at the beginning of June. So he is 4K. Probably can give you 3-4 innings. It is a 6-game slate. I guess it's not the most insane thing, but you probably don't really need to do it. He's getting 2% ownership. He basically can't be a top 2 scorer, barring him just striking out like 12 guys in 3 innings,
right?
Or 4 innings, however that works. But it could play out where the mid-range, just everybody scores 13 points and getting the Soriano who scores 9, works. But not something I think you're going to need to get to very often. It's also clearly a tough matchup against Texas. On the other side, decent spot for John Gray, getting 20.5% ownership, 22% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. A little bit lower owned than Savali, a little bit lower owned than Skubal, lower owned than Nick Pivetta. So is somewhat interesting in tournaments. He hasn't been great this year, though. Only striking out 20% of hitters, 4.5 xFIP. 3.9 implied run total for the Marlins. Their lineup is a bit better than it has been. They traded for Jake Burger. They traded for Josh Bell. But Bell's really struggled this year overall. In his time with Cleveland. Burger gives you strikeout upside. So I do think Gray is pretty reasonable at 8,100.
Okay. How about the bets in this game?
Yeah, Rangers look fine. I don't love the bullpen game aspect. Never do. You're going to get Soriano probably just out there throwing as hard as he can for one time through the order, and then you're going to get bullpen arms after him. So it's not appealing from a matchup standpoint necessarily, but it's still just a really good offense that can do a lot of damage. And they're reasonably priced. The guys at the top that should be expensive are very expensive in Semien and Seager and Garcia. But Nathaniel Lowe, 4,200 is fine. 47 for Young is fine. And then 6 through 9 should be sub 4K guys. So it's not a very difficult team to stack if you're willing to go to the bottom of the order, or, you can get the expensive guys and roll the dice on some of the cheaper pitching. So the Rangers do look pretty good. They're third in top stack percentage. They are getting 7.5% ownership, middle of the pack in stack score because of how expensive the top of the order is. But 7.9 stack score, 7.5 aggregate ownership tells me that they're pretty much correctly owned and have plenty of upside.
How would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
Gray, Texas, Miami, Soriano.
All right. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up Prize Picks because they are the sponsor of this show. And also, it's a great time to join right this second if you have not yet signed up for Prize Picks, because we have a lot of really strong plays on Prize Picks right now, more like really positive EV bets than you or plays than you often find on Prize Picks. So if you have not yet signed up for Prize Picks, I would recommend doing so right now. You're going to get your first deposit. If you use the link that is in the description of this video, you'll get your first deposit matched up to $100. So you put $100 in, they'll match that $100. You'll have $200. You'll also get 1 free month of Stochastic plus Platinum. If you use our links, you'll get access to all of the tools that we are talking about, the top batters tool, top pitchers tool, top stacks tool. Those are all included in your free month of Stochastic plus Platinum. Plus, this tool is not included in this. This is Odd Shopper that I'm looking at here. But if you sign up right now, there are a lot of really strong plays on Prize Picks right now. So I would recommend checking it out this morning. You don't often find this many bets that have 55, 56% win rates. A lot of really strong ones on Prize Picks right now. So I would jump on. You can play some of these bets that are currently on the screen right now. These are some of the top plays on Prize Picks. So again, if you haven't yet signed up, highly recommend doing so. A lot of strong plays right now. We'll get back to the DFS slate. We have 2 more games to get through, starting with Washington at Cincinnati. We've got Yoan Adon on the mound for the Nationals, Andrew Abbott for the Reds. Any interest in these pitchers, Adam?
Abbott for sure. Not the best strikeout matchup against the Nats. Terrible park to pitch in, but 6-game slate, good strikeout pitcher. We've talked a lot about Abbott recently where he's been very lucky in terms of run prevention this year, but that doesn't mean he's bad. It just means he's not, he's been lucky and it's not going to continue. Doesn't have to turn around today though. In terms of, why he's been lucky, 2.35 ERA, 3.9 FIP, 4.38 xFIP. Both of those numbers, again, perfectly fine, just not supporting a 2.35 ERA. 91.9% left on base percentage is impossible to maintain. That's going to end up in the 70 to 75% range. 235 BABIP, essentially impossible to maintain. That's going to end up at least in like the 280 to 320 range, somewhere in there. But the thing to like about Abbott is that he's striking out 27.8% of hitters. So yes, he's been lucky in terms of run prevention, but it's not like he's getting lucky on strikeouts. That's a stat that stabilizes quickly. He's a good strikeout pitcher. We know that. So, 9,800 is probably a little more expensive than you would like on most slates. You're paying for the strikeout upside, but you're also kind of paying a premium because of how good he's been at preventing runs so far, which we know he's not actually that good at it. But on this slate, everything is relative. $9,400 Justin Verlander is getting, 33% ownership. So is Abbott. Abbott's comparable to Verlander, much better strikeout stuff. Verlander striking out 21% of hitters so far this year. Projection models rest of season expect like 24 to 25%. So you're getting the strikeout edge for Abbott. You have the more difficult park, but it's not like Yankee Stadium is great either. 4.38 xFIP, as I mentioned, for Abbott. For Verlander, it's 4.52. So this isn't a slate where you have the very clear-cut top-tier aces who would just get blown up anyway, because that's what happens. But So getting to Abbott here makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of slates where he'd be $9,800 and he's just an afterthought and getting 5% ownership. But here, he's one of the best strikeout pitchers. He's got a good enough matchup against Washington. The downside is just that it's a terrible park to pitch in. The Nats do have a 4.1 to 4.2 implied run total, and they don't strike out a ton.
Okay. Any interest in the bats?
Yeah, I mean, this is the closest thing you get to Coors Field outside of Coors Field. Great home run park, 6.4 implied run total for Cincinnati going up against the Don. He doesn't have a lot of time in the major leagues, but going back to the start of last season, 261 expected ISO to left-handed hitters, 145 to righties, but also a 351 expected WOBA to righties, 16% K percentage to righties, 20.5% to lefties. Does not look very good, and again, reflected in the implied run total. Great park to hit in. De La Cruz, again, he's priced for his ceiling, but that ceiling is massive. Third base, shortstop eligible. If you can find the salary, great. Friedel at 4K is fine. McLean, again, 5,900 is a tough sell from a median standpoint, but he is probably batting third on a team with the highest implied run total. Steer, Votto, Encarnacion, like any of these guys have power, have upside, especially in this park. So the Reds look great. It's just an ownership concern. They are getting 18% aggregate ownership, 15 stack score. So probably going a little bit over owned, but clearly in a great spot. It's just a matter of, can you find ways to differentiate elsewhere? As far as the Nats go, I do think they're interesting too, just because of the park. They're third in stack score, first in top value percentage by a wide margin, 6% chance of being the top stack, middle of the road. And you're getting that negative correlation with Abbott, where if the Nats do well, like 33% of the field doesn't have a chance at beating you, regardless of what stack they went with.
Right.
And then, the Nats themselves also aren't getting a ton of ownership, 8.5% aggregate ownership. Lane Thomas coming in at 4,600. He's overperforming this year, but still has upside. He's an average to slightly above average hitter as opposed to a great hitter that he's been this year, but still fine. Abrams, lefty, not ideal, but does give you upside at shortstop, has power, has speed. Stone Garrett's very cheap. Meneses is cheap. Ruiz is a solid catching option, assuming he's in the lineup. So the Nats, not the best lineup, but a great park, and they do give you some negative correlation with the field.
Yeah, that's a good call. Some nice leverage on the Nats bats. Man, Cincinnati 6.5 implied run total. You don't see that outside of Coors very often.
Yeah, especially for an offense that is good, but not great.
Yeah.
It's not the Braves.
How would you rank the four sides of this game?
Cincinnati, Abbott, Nats, Adon. I mean, 7,500 Adon. I don't know how you possibly get there.
Yeah. All right. Final game of the early slate. We have Toronto at Boston. Jose Barrios on the mound for the Blue Jays. Nick Pivetta for the Red Sox. Any interest in these pitchers, Adam?
So it looks like they are going back to Pivetta, the follower.
Oh, really? Okay.
I haven't seen that confirmed, but Schreiber is listed as the probable opener. So it does concern me because there's always some percentage chance that the team screws with the opener. Like we've seen San Francisco do it a lot recently, where I don't know if they are just misreport, like if they're saying the wrong thing or the reporters are just clueless. But we've seen multiple times where like the follower for San Francisco ends up being somebody different than was expected. We haven't seen the Red Sox doing that with Pivetta. Pivetta has just come in the second or third inning when he's expected to, but there is always that risk. His salaries come up a little bit. It's a tough matchup against Toronto, but if it is him, he is a good strikeout pitcher. He also gives up a lot of power. This game's in Fenway Park. 32% ownership scares me. I get it because of that price tag, because of the strikeout upside, but there are reasons to be concerned. Like if he's not starting this game, it's nice because he doesn't have to face Merrifield and Guerrero the first time through the order, but it also lowers your innings expectation. It does make it easier for him to get the win because if he comes in the second or third inning and the Red Sox have the lead then, get the lead while he's pitching, he doesn't have to go the minimum 5 innings. So it makes it easier to get that. But we do kind of just need, I guess, clarification on if he is actually going to be the follower here or if he's going to start. Assuming he's the follower, he's a good play, but that ownership does scare me because you do have a lot of power here in a park that is good for hitting.
Yeah, I don't think I know like fully the win-loss rules for baseball. Like I understand for the most part, like for starting pitchers, I know what it takes to get a win. Relief pitchers, it's always been a little bit like confusing for me. Like, is it the same rules if you come in relief in the second inning as the 8th inning? Do you know the win rule? Okay.
Yeah, so it's if you start the game to qualify for the win, you have to go at least 5 innings and you have to leave with your team in the lead, and then they never give it up and you get the win.
Yep.
Right. But if you're the reliever, so like let's say Schreiber is the opener here and Pivetta comes in the second inning. If the Red Sox take the lead in the first inning and then Pivetta comes in the second and the Red Sox either never give it up or they give it up but then get it back while Pavetta's still pitching, he gets the win whether he goes 1 inning, 3 innings, 5 innings, doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's seems so easy to get the win if you are a long reliever, like so much easier than as the starter.
Yeah,
like
it's literally just they need to take the lead while you're in the game or before you came into
or
the
before,
game.
yeah.
Relinquish it.
Yeah, seems like really a bonus too. Makes it a lot easier to get that win. Interesting.
Yeah, so I didn't even know it was happening until it came up yesterday. One of the Orioles relievers has 9 wins this year, because he's the guy that like he's not good enough to be their back end guy. You know, it's Bautista and Cano when you have the lead, but he's good enough where like they bring him in close games when they're in a jam, and so he has 9 wins just from coming in. You know, like yesterday, you know, came in with the score 2-2, pitched an inning or whatever, and the Orioles took the lead, and he gets a win.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I thought like maybe the rules are different if you come in early in the game, but yeah, it's definitely increases the odds of a win. Any interest in the bats in this game?
Oh yeah, a lot of it. So Barrios on the other side, we talked about Pivetta. Barrios on the other side, don't want to, Aaron Savali him, but 8,700 against the Red Sox, obviously not a great price tag, not a great matchup, only getting 10% ownership. So kind of in that Bryce Elder bucket where certainly prefer the other pitchers like Savali, but he is getting, around 1/3 of the ownership. You can make the case for using him as a pivot, but 4.7 to 4.8 implied run total for both teams. Barrios is good, but not great. You do have plenty of left-handed power for Boston. Lefties so far this year against Barrios, 176 expected ISO, 24.8% strikeout percentage. Righties have a 172 expected ISO, so we haven't seen drastic splits there, but Boston's very reasonably priced as well. 4,100 for Duran, 4,600 for Yoshida, 3,700 for Casas really stands out. He's been fantastic after a slow start to the season. Devers at only 5K looks really good. So really like getting to the Red Sox. And then on the Toronto side, again, we don't know for sure who's pitching for Boston, but if it is Pivetta, with his strikeouts comes a lot of power allowed as well. Against the team that has a lot of it. 186 expected ISO to righties, 189 to lefties. Happy to get to the Blue Jays, happy to get to the Red Sox. Right now we have Toronto second in the stack score. We have the Red Sox fourth. Looks good to me.
Definitely. How would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
Boston, Toronto, Pivetta, if we get word that he is pitching in some shape or form, and then Barrios.
All right. We've made it to the end of the early game slate. Rich B says, I'm a Met fan. It's crazy how good the Orioles are. Saw them a few times against the Yankees, but the whole game last night, Adam has a lot to be happy about. Yeah, it's good to be ship my money right now. He's winning all the money. Fun team to cheer for.
Yeah, fun team. Really, and like they're all really likable too, and like they get along really well. Or at least seemingly get along really well. I think they kind of have to, considering like they have so many hitters that like they just end up rotating guys in and out, and like I feel like that can kill a clubhouse if they don't actually like each other.
Right.
But they seemingly do. Like they're so easy to root for and so fun to watch.
How good is this Westberg kid?
He's good. 30. I think he's like the 30th overall prospect.
Okay.
Projects to be an above average hitter. He's probably the long-term second baseman unless he gets traded for pitching this offseason.
Do you think they're going to be able to Braves all these young players, like get them to all sign for like super cheap and keep them long term?
No. Gunnar Henderson's a Boris client, and Boris typically doesn't do that. Jackson Holiday is a Boris client. Adley is not.
I don't think I could name another sports agent outside of Scott Boras. Like he's
Drew Rosenhaus.
Oh yeah, Drew Rose. Okay, yeah. But I think of Scott Boras as being like the biggest, like you don't want to have to deal with Scott Boras because he gets great deals for his clients.
Yeah, and he generally just will not do the, let's buy out a couple years of free agency, get money in your pocket right out of the gate type extensions.
Yeah. All right. On this early slate, who are your 3 favorite pitchers?
Abbott, Verlander, Savali.
3 favorite stacks.
Cincinnati, Toronto, Boston.
Home run pick.
I'll go De La Cruz.
I will go Matt McLain. All right, covering those Reds. All right. We can move on to the main slate, the early slate was 6 games. Main slate, it's still 8 games. All right. I was thinking it was a shorter main slate. All right. We still have 8 games to get through. We can do that. No problem. First game of the main slate. Speaking of those Orioles, we've got the Mets at the Orioles. Tyler McGill on the mound for the Mets. Kyle Gibson for the Orioles. Starting with the pitchers. Any interest there, Adam?
Hang on. Flipping over to that slate.
Yeah.
So Gibson 7,900, not a particularly easy selling point. You have 8 games, like you said, so there are plenty of pitching options. Gibson's getting 9% ownership, 12% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. If you get to him, you get to him, but there's certainly pitchers that are going to look better. On the other side, very tough to make the case for McGill. He is facing a very tough Baltimore lineup, 5.4 implied run total. This park plays up left-handed power. I definitely prefer the Orioles when they're facing right-handed pitching at home, just because of the massive difference in terms of how easy it is to hit home runs as a lefty in Camden Yards compared to a righty. So doesn't look very good for McGill. He's been up and down between the Mets and the minors this year. Overall in the majors, 20% K percentage against lefties, 353 expected WOBA, 165 expected ISO isn't terrible. If you go back to the start of last year, it's 180. Righties have gotten to him more, only a 16% K percentage, 216 expected ISO, 392 expected WOBA. So that's not to say, like, I still prefer the lefties here just because of the park. Rutschman, Henderson, Santander, O'Hearn, all those guys are going to look good. But Ryan Mountcastle's been great since coming back from the injured list. He was dealing with vertigo, so I think he's clearly not going to continue hitting the way he has since coming back. That's completely unsustainable. But it does make sense that he was really struggling, and we have a easy explanation for it. And then now he's back to hitting well. So he's 3,800. You can only play one of him or O'Hearn on DraftKings, but they both look pretty good. Hayes has been struggling a bit, but that's knocked his salary down to 3,300. Cowser has been awful so far, but he is a top 15 prospect at 2,200, assuming he's back in the lineup. So there's a lot of ways you can attack this Baltimore team where they're pretty inexpensive outside of the top 3 guys, and they have a lot of upside. So not really looking to get to McGill, definitely looking to get to the Orioles.
So Cowser is a better prospect than Westberg.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I didn't realize that. Man, they really do. They have all these young prospects.
They have
That'll be a fun time.
8 or 9 guys in the top 100 overall.
Yeah. That's, and like, I mean, a couple of the top overall.
Yeah, the top. Yeah.
Is Rutschman the top overall, followed by?
No, so he's not listed anymore. Yeah, so that's the thing. So they have 8 or 9 guys in the top 100 prospects, but like Adley already graduated, Grayson Rodriguez already graduated, Gunnar Henderson already graduated. Yeah. Coming into this season, Gunnar Henderson was the number 1 overall prospect. He graduated. Now Jackson Holliday is the number 1 overall prospect.
Wow. Was Adley Rutschman also at one point?
Yeah. So Adley was number 1. Then he graduated, and it was Gunnar. Then Gunnar graduated, and now it's Jackson Holliday.
Yeah, absolutely insane. Definitely fun time to.
And Grayson was like 3rd coming into this season, and he's just not on the list anymore either.
All right.
Holliday is 19 at AA, and the Orioles GM said he's probably not going to make it to the majors this year, but it's possible.
Okay, man, that would be like, do they even need him to make it to the majors? I mean, they clearly don't need him, but
no, I was talking to a friend about it. Like the last time the Orioles started to get good was 2012, and they had a massive hole at third base. Like they just couldn't find the solution, and they had Manny Machado at AA playing shortstop, and they were just like, screw it, it can't be any worse. And they brought him up as a 20-year-old, threw him at third base, and he was great. If they had a hole like that, I think you would see Holliday come up this year, but they already have too many good infielders.
Right. They just don't have the need. How would you rank the 4 sides of this game?
Baltimore bats, Mets bats. Didn't talk about the Mets specifically, but they do only have a 4 to 4.1 implied run total. But they do have some left-handed power here in a park that plays it up. Gibson's been fine this year. 152 expected ISO to lefties, 329 expected WOBA. But Brandon Nimmo at 4,600, Lindor, those two are going to look good from the left side. Francisco Alvarez is always one of your highest upside catcher options. Alonso, great, hitter, obviously. But this park does downplay right-handed power, so that hurts those two a little bit. But I'd say Baltimore 1, Mets 2, Gibson 3, McGill 4.
Okay. Wex says Chris Murphy is listed as the probable long reliever for Boston today on DraftKings. Not sure how credible that is. Yeah, I don't know how credible. That's definitely something we're going to want to.
I guess I hadn't refreshed. Yeah, so now he's listed as he's listed as the probable long reliever now. So I mean I assume Pivetta will just go away from our projections.
Would you use Chris Murphy at all? I don't really know much about him.
Nah, he's 6,600. Tough matchup with Toronto. It makes a lot more sense for it to not been Pavetta, just given that there was like a 4.8 implied run total for Toronto.
Okay, yeah.
We have Chris Murphy in now and Pavetta out, so you could ignore all of the Pavetta conversations.
All right.
Also, pitching ownership is going to be much different on the early slate than it was when we talked about it because we had Pavetta getting 31%.
Oh, right. Damn. Okay. Interesting. Well, we need to soldier on because we've got a lot to talk about here. But yeah, you can factor that into our early slate analysis. Thanks for drawing that to our attention. Wex.
It's just okay. So I can go through it quickly. We have Pavetta out now. So Savali went up a bit to 31%. Gray went from 20 to 26. Scuba went from like 22 to 27. Elder went from I think 8 to 15. Chris Murphy's getting 15. I don't love that one. But yeah, so you kind of just saw, everybody's ownership in that range just go up a little bit. Abbott and Verlander are still coming in around 33%.
Perfect. All right. Good coverage there. And Sandy says, I asked about Westberg one-off yesterday and he came through. Yes, he did. It was fun to have him in some lineups yesterday. John Warner says, summertime Vancouver is the nuts, Adam. Make the trip.
Yeah, that's definitely that's a city I need to go to. I've heard great things. I don't know why I've never been. The only place I've been in Canada is Toronto, which I love.
John just meeting everybody. He was just I was watching Pete Overzet stream with Jacob Sanderson, who lives also out there, and they were talking about possibly meeting up. So yeah, John, just gonna fill up your social schedule. All right, San Francisco at Oakland. We've got Ross Stripling on the mound for the Giants. Paul Blackburn for the A's. Any interest in these pitchers, Adam?
Not a lot. It is a good park for pitching. Blackburn has been solid this year. It is a good strikeout matchup. He's getting 15% ownership at 6,700. I don't have an issue with that. 20% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. Overall this year, 22.8% K percentage, 4.1 xFIP. He's had some tough matchups recently where he hasn't really been playable. In this park against the team that strikes out a lot, I think he's a reasonable play if you need the savings. It is worth noting he's been very good at limiting left-handed power this year. The Giants are a tricky matchup because they will strike out, but they also have a ton of good power hitters, mostly from the left side. Small sample, 401 pitches thrown, but Blackburn has held lefties to a sub 100 expected ISO, 316 expected WOBA. So certainly a reasonable value play. You're kind of just going to be holding your breath the whole game, but 6,700 is fine. Stripling on the other side, good matchup, but getting 23% ownership just because of how cheap he is. He's fine. He's not a great pitcher by any stretch. He's not been very good overall this year. 18% strikeout percentage, but he has been pretty unlucky in terms of run prevention. 5.52 ERA is a reason why his salary is as cheap as it is, but he has a 3.82 xFIP. 307 BABIP, isn't crazy, but 2 home runs per 9 innings. You expect that number to come down. So you can look here for pitching, for value pitching. You're just not going to feel overly comfortable with it.
All right. How about the bats?
Also, 63 pitches last time out for Stripling, but he got pulled midway through the 5th inning. Prior to that, on July 24th, he had thrown 87 pitches in 6 innings against the Tigers. So he is relatively stretched out. As far as the bats go, tough to like either side too much here, just given the park. Tough for hitting home runs, massive foul territory. So it ends at bats that shouldn't or wouldn't end in any other parks. San Francisco is middle of the pack with an 8% chance of being the top stack. Oakland dead last at 2%. The Giants are the more appealing stack, just for the reason I was saying with Blackburn, where he's been very, very good at limiting power to lefties, but you have a lot of cheap left-handed power from the Giants. They're just like permanently priced down because of playing in San Francisco. But 223 expected ISO against righties this year for Wade, 272 for Peterson, 162 for Davis from the right side, 197 for Patrick Bailey, 178 for Conforto, 190 for Sable if he's in the lineup. So you have a lot of cheap power here, even though it's not an ideal spot.
A lot of people asking about the Braves weather on the early slate. I don't remember. I think you commented on it at the time. You said that I think currently, would you still play it?
Yeah. So I mean, at the moment, I would play it, but the game starts in 2.5 hours. So
yeah,
definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I don't we can't give you great info on it now just because we're so far ahead. Even weathermen can't really predict that far ahead.
Yeah. The one thing, like, you're not really looking at pitching too much from that game. You always can take on a little bit more risk with bats, or at least I should say, like, not take on risk. Like if there's a high chance the game gets postponed. Obviously, you don't want bats either. But if it's like you could get rain in the 4th inning, that doesn't really matter for bats.
Right. All right. How would you rank the 4 sides of the San Francisco Oakland game?
Stripling, Blackburn, Giants, A's.
Einsteinium says, I heard Montreal is like the stripper capital of the world. I have heard that also.
Yeah, I've heard Montreal's a great time. Montreal and Vancouver are the 2 Canadian cities that I haven't been to that I would like to go to, or that I've been told I should go to.
This is going to shock some people. I've never been to Canada, even though I live in Minnesota. It's like 4 hours to get to the border. So it's not like it's
this like me yesterday saying I've never been to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, it is similar. Like, it's probably, how far is Philadelphia from Baltimore?
An hour and a half by train.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
I mean, that's fairly close, but I'm sure there are cities. No, there's no real big cities near me that I haven't been to. But yeah, Canada, never been there. I would love to go sometime. I just, I'm a warm weather guy, and like Minnesota is nice enough during the summer that I don't need to like go up to Canada for nice weather. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been to Toronto twice in the summer, but like you live there basically.
Right.
Toronto's, I guess, probably further south than you.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where Toronto is relative to.
It's like right across from Detroit.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Minnesota, Adam?
Only the airport.
All right, one more place that you should knock off your list while you're on vacation. Come to Minnesota. I'll show you around St. Paul. Everything closes by 9, but like, we'll have a great time up until. That's a lie, by the way. That's like the what people say about St. Paul is like it goes to bed early. Like Minneapolis is like the fun late night city. St. Paul is it's not really true. St. Paul is open just as late as Minneapolis.
Yeah, I've heard good things. I got into University of Minnesota Law School, so briefly considered going there.
That is where I went to law school. I also briefly considered going to Washington University of St. Louis, where you went. Did you just go for one semester or 1 year?
Yeah, I went 1 semester and 1 week. So I went 1 semester. Then we had a negotiation, like week-long course that I went to, and then I went to the first day of classes, 2nd semester, and never went back.
Okay. But yeah, Minnesota is actually beautiful here, like 6 months of the year. Everybody always thinks of it as just like, oh, it's just it's a frozen tundra. And that is true for a lot of the year, but like the summer, the fall, spring, it's actually beautiful in Minnesota. Yeah. So
I went
to
looking
Montana for something to do
2 summers ago and was shocked at how much I liked it.
I've never been to Montana, another place that I should probably knock off my list at some point. Did you rank the 4 sides of this Oakland game?
Yes. Stripling, Blackburn, Giants, A's, and I'm like 95% sure that's the same order that I did before.
Nice job. Well, speaking of Minnesota, Arizona at Minnesota is our next game. We've got Ryan Nelson on the mound for the Diamondbacks, Kenta Maeda for the Twins. Any interest in these pitchers?
Some. So Maeda is clearly the better pitcher of the 2. He also has the tough matchup with Arizona, but still a 3.8 implied run total for Arizona. Maeda's 3rd in top 2 pitcher percentage at 22%, 21% ownership. It's scary at $9,500. I mean, this is a team that certainly can do damage, but Maeda is a good pitcher overall. 29.3% strikeout percentage, 3.84 xFIP on the season. You have Burns and Snell ahead of him in top 2 pitcher percentage, but they are also $1,600 and $2,200 more expensive. So, different roster construction.
All right. How much interest do you have in the bats here in this Minnesota game?
Minnesota looks pretty interesting. This is a team that strikes out a lot against right-handed pitching, but also has a lot of power upside. And now they're facing a pitcher in Ryan Nelson that has only struck out 12% of the left-handed hitters that he's faced this year, 17% of the righties, 202 expected ISO to righties, 208 to lefties with a 363 expected WOBA. Sets up pretty nicely for, Julian, Polanco, Kepler, Wallner, left-handed power. Joey Gallo can probably put the ball in play against this guy at 3,100 as well. 4.7 implied run total. They're cheap. So we have them not nearly as high in stack score as I expected, given how inexpensive they are, but they're coming in 6th in stack score, 10% chance of being the top value stack, 9% projected ownership. They look pretty good against Nelson. The other side is more difficult. Maeda is a good pitcher. You're never wrong for playing, say, Corbin Carroll, but Kenta Maeda this year, very surprising. So for a lot of his career, he's been lights out against righties and had some issues with lefties. It's not a huge sample size this year, but he's held lefties to a 281 expected WOBA and a 101 expected ISO, only a 314 expected WOBA to righties, but he has had some power issues with a 217 expected ISO. So, you're never wrong getting the Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, Christian Walker, Tommy Pham. These guys all have plenty of upside, but there's plenty of bad pitching on this slate that you can target, and Kenta Maeda is certainly not one of those guys.
Okay. How would you rank the four sides of the game?
Maeda, Twins, Diamondbacks, Nelson.
All right. David Vita says, this MFR said he's a warm weather guy and he lives in Minnesota. Yeah, I mean, I was born in Minnesota. I didn't choose. I guess I did choose to come back. I could move. That is true. But, my whole family's here. It's not because of the weather.
I hate Maryland weather, but also am here.
Right. Sometimes we could choose, but like there are things keeping us here. All right. Chicago at Cleveland. Michael Kopech on the mound for the White Sox. Noah Syndergaard for the Guardians. Any interest in either pitcher?
Well, you said Noah Syndergaard, so that's going to be a quick no. I mean, in all seriousness, 6,400 against the White Sox, fine, but 2% ownership. It's just a pure value play where like Blackburn and Stripling should be getting more ownership. They are getting more ownership. They project better. But if you need a pivot, he's fine. 8% chance of being a top 2 pitcher compared to like 12% for Blackburn and 10% for Stripling. So, it's one of those like, yeah, if you give me 8-1 odds, I'll take Syndergaard, but that's also not exactly how you play DFS. So if he ends up in a lineup here or there, in 150 lineups, sure, but certainly not going to be excited to get there. It is a pretty bad Chicago lineup, though. They traded Jake Berger. You have Robert, who's really good. You have Jimenez, Moncada and Anderson. The idea of them is good. They're not particularly good, though. Andrew Vaughn has some power, but as far as Noah Syndergaard matchups go, like this is one that I think you could get to. It's more difficult probably to get to Kopech at 8,600, just given the lack of strikeouts here. He is getting 1% ownership, 10% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher. It's just that his chances of being a top 2 scoring pitcher are comparable or even behind, $6,700 Blackburn, $5,500 Stripling. Kopech's been very, very volatile this year. He was really bad at the beginning of the year. Then he went through a stretch where he was like unhittable and striking out everybody. Now he's back to being closer to what he was early in the year. Overall, he has a 24% strikeout percentage, which is good. Everything else is terrible. 14% walk percentage, 5.39 xFIP, 6.3 FIP, 2.1 home runs per 9. And then you have a brutal strikeout matchup here against Cleveland. So at 8,600, it's very difficult to make the case for him.
Okay. So not any real interest in the pitchers. How much interest in the bats here?
Good amount, especially in Cleveland. They are pretty inexpensive. Kopech's had, the issues that we just talked about. The problem is Cleveland doesn't have a ton of power in their lineup, and this is a park upgrade for Kopech getting out of Chicago. But 261 expected ISO to lefties, 203 to righties. Jose Ramirez stands out as usual at 5,600. Jimenez is a good second base option at 4,300. Then you pretty much just get cheap bats. Oscar Gonzalez likely hitting cleanup at 2,400. Will Brennan, 2,800. Bo Naylor has some power upside at catcher at 3K. So it's more so they have a pretty good matchup, and then you can just build really strong lineups around them. White Sox, more difficult to get to. Syndergaard, while he doesn't get the strikeouts like he used to, has still been okay at limiting power, particularly to righties. 141 expected ISO to righties. He has allowed a 269 expected ISO to lefties in a limited sample. The problem is just where do you go for left-handed power? Like you can hope Yoan Moncada finds it. You can, go to Andrew Benintendi and hope he, accidentally hits a home run. But most of the power, the guys that you're really looking at, Robert, Jimenez, Vaughn, all right-handed, and Syndergaard has been better at limiting power to righties.
Any stolen base picks for the White Sox?
All of them.
Yeah. All right. How would you rank the four sides of the game?
Cleveland, White Sox, Syndergaard, Kopech.
All right. Still have 4 more games to get through. Pittsburgh at Milwaukee. We've got Bailey Falter on the mound for the Pirates, Corbin Burns for the Brewers. How much interest in the pitchers here?
So Burns looks really good. I am surprised he's projected for 41% ownership at $11,700. Like wow. That is a hell of a price tag. It's a decent matchup. The Pirates are an average-ish offense. It is a tough, it is a good hitter's park, but you do only have a 3 implied run total for Pittsburgh. If you can get to Burns, by all means, play Burns. I'm just a little surprised he's getting that much ownership at that price tag. I guess it is in part because you do have Stripling, Blackburn, Matz as very easy SP2 plays, and you also don't love the price tag on Snell. I don't love the price tag on Maeda. Don't love the price tag on Kirby. So I guess I'm kind of talking it out, I see why that ownership's happening. It's still just kind of alarming to look at, but I don't, I say it a lot that like if you're going to say somebody is over-owned, you have to follow it up with like where you think that ownership
Right.
should be going, and I can't really do that. So the presence of those SP2s, I guess, does make some sense. He's overpriced, but it doesn't matter that much when you have the underpriced SP2s to pair with him. So Burns, yeah, I mean, long story short, if you can get to him, great, and those SP2s do make it a little bit easier than it normally would be.
Okay. How much interest in the bets in this game?
Interested in the Brewers mostly. Nearly 5 implied run total. They're facing Bailey Falter, who is nothing special. He so far this year has allowed a 250 expected ISO to righties, 324 to lefties. That's pretty limited sample. If you go back to the start of last season, still not a huge sample size, but 189 expected ISO to righties, 312 to lefties. Contreras and Adames, I've said it 100 times, but they're relatively expensive, but it makes the stack a little bit stronger because you're getting two of the best hitters at two of the weakest positions. So the opportunity cost of using a catcher and a shortstop in your stack is just lower than when you get teams where it's like outfielder, first base, because then you end up using one-offs at positions where there's not many good hitters. So it's nice to be able to cover the weaker positions in your stack and then use the best outfielders or best first baseman or whatever it may be as your one-off. So Milwaukee looks pretty solid. They are right behind Minnesota in stack score, 8% chance of being the top stack, 7% aggregate ownership. They look pretty good. The other side for Pittsburgh, if you're going there, it's pretty much just the two arguments, I think, or three arguments, I guess. One, they're really cheap. Two, it's a park upgrade. And then three, if they do well, you just knocked off 40% of the field. Corbin Burns overall this year has been good. He's been better recently, started off the year slowly. Sub 100 expected ISO to lefties, 164 to righties, striking lefties out 28% of the time as well. So you have cheap power here. Jack Suwinski in particular at 3,900, but we've seen games recently where I've really liked Suwinski because he's facing right-handed pitching that doesn't get strikeouts. Here he's facing a righty that does get strikeouts and limits power to lefties. So, he'll probably homer here because it makes no sense. But, him, Reynolds, Davis, McCutchen, Hayes, these are solid enough hitters. It's just a really, really tough matchup. So outside of, your largest field tournaments, I don't really see a reason to be messing with Pittsburgh.
Okay. How would you rank the four sides of the game?
Burns, Milwaukee, Pirates, Falter.
All right. Paul C. wants to know, are you enlisting in the Peace Corps?
Yeah, as soon as I get back from Antarctica.
After you get back from Antarctica, right to the Peace Corps. Perfect. All right. Colorado at St. Louis. We have Ty Block on the mound for the Rockies, Steven Matz for the Cardinals. Any interest in these pitchers?
Yeah, Matz looks great. Good matchup against Colorado outside of Coors. Adam Wainwright couldn't get it done, but Adam Wainwright's a special case of pitcher. Yeah. So Matz is an actually solid pitcher. 21.6% K percentage, 3.99 xFIP. He's only $6,900. He is the pay down option that people are using the most. He's getting 42% ownership. So do keep in mind that, we talk a lot about individual player ownership doesn't really matter. It's more so about what your lineups look like. If you're going Corbin Burns plus Steven Matz, you are overlapping a lot of the field. Yeah. It's a pairing that makes a lot of sense. I'm not saying you can't do it. Just be aware that you probably shouldn't be going like, we haven't gotten to them yet, but the three teams getting a lot of ownership today are St. Louis, Seattle, and Baltimore, Cleveland as well. Like probably shouldn't be going with those teams 5-man stack plus Matz plus Burns. I don't anticipate that showing up a lot in lineups I play. It's more so like if I'm going Burns plus Matz, I probably want to be getting to like the Padres, the Dodgers, teams that just aren't getting much ownership. But that aside, he looks like the best value pitcher. Good matchup, good pitcher, or good enough pitcher. Ty Block on the other side, I have zero interest in.
All right. With that in mind, the St. Louis has 5.81. I mean, I don't know what to make of what it says in Fantasy. I think it's an aggregation of different run totals. St. Louis has a very high run total here. How much interest do you have in either of the stacks in this game?
I have a lot in the St. Louis side. It's just a good spot. Not only is Ty Block not very good, but the Rockies bullpen also not very good. So you just get add-on run opportunities after the starter. Ty Block hasn't pitched in the majors much this year. Going back to last year, 350 pitches to lefties, 649 to righties. He did hold righties to a 142 expected ISO, allowed a 354 expected WOBA. But, you have plenty of right-handed power here. Goldschmidt, Arenado, Contreras, O'Neill, Walker. All those guys do damage from the right side. You could potentially have a very cheap Dylan Carlson at the top of the order at 2,200. If he's up there, that's probably the best hitting value you're going to find on the slate. Tommy Edman, 3,300 is reasonably priced. So we obviously don't have the lineup yet, but they're going to have power in this lineup. They're going to look good. On the other side, it's pretty tough to want to get to Colorado. Not only are they a bad offense overall, but the hitters that you like the most are left-handed. Ryan McMahon in particular. Steven Matz has allowed a 103 expected ISO to lefties this year, 296 expected WOBA. Righties haven't been a lot better, but it's really tough to get to the Rockies overall. Brendan Rodgers at 2,800 is a decent value, but not very interested in the Rockies.
How would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
Nats, Cardinals, Rockies, tie block.
All right. 2 games left. We've got Los Angeles at San Diego. Ryan Yarbrough on the mound for the Dodgers. Blake Snell for the Pods. Any interest in these pitchers?
Yeah, Snell is good. He's also got a brutal matchup. So it's a spot where he, on a lot of slates, he wouldn't be getting that much ownership. Here he's getting 16%, still getting, like 1/3 of what Burns is getting, or around there. 11,100 against the Dodgers is brutal. One thing that really concerns me here, Blake Snell clearly has strikeout ability. He's got the highest strikeout percentage on the slate at 31.1%, 3.6 xFIP. He's very good, but this is somebody that, one, walks a lot of hitters, and two, that the fact that almost 50% of the hitters that step in the box are either walking or striking out, it makes it difficult for Snell to get deep into games. And now you're facing a veteran team like the Dodgers that can work counts and even more than average teams. So that's a pretty big concern, where you could just see, even if he's preventing runs and pitching well, it's just like, shit, Snell's at 90 pitches in 4 innings, something like that. So That's a really big concern, on top of the fact that he's 11,100 facing the Dodgers. So I kind of think it's likely that, obviously I haven't built lineups yet for this slate, but I wouldn't be surprised if I end up, as far as the payout pitching goes, getting even more Burns. Like, if it continues to be, 40% Burns, 15% Snell, if I actually get more Burns and less Snell.
Interesting. Okay. So you've done a full 180 from when you started talking about Burns.
So I'm saying, at least, like, if I'm getting to those pitchers.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting.
Like yesterday, that's how it played out for me with Nola and Castillo. You had like 40% ownership coming into Nola. You had 20% to Castillo. A lot of times it's like, oh, well, similar range of outcomes. I want the guy that's half his own. I ended up playing 60% Nola, 5% Castillo. I wouldn't be surprised if I end up doing the same thing here. It would be different if this were like 50% Burns, 5% Snell. But I think there's a big enough gap that the ownership is kind of like correct on both, I guess. And so I just kind of want the guy that projects better.
Interesting. Any interest in the bats in this game?
Yes, just because both sides are good offensively. So, I mean, Yarbrough, not a great pitcher. So definitely interested in the Padres just for that reason. Yarbrough this season, 156 expected ISO to righties, only a 13% K percentage, 15% to lefties, 167 expected ISO. So, don't shy away from Soto, or Cronenworth, but you have a lot of right-handed power here, starting with Tatis, Machado. You have Kim, you have Bogarts, Gary Sanchez, or Campusano at catcher. So the Padres just look pretty solid. They are second to last in stack score, but that's because of how expensive they are. In terms of top stack percentage, they're middle of the pack at around 6%, 4% projected ownership. So if you can get to them, great. And it shouldn't be that tough to get to them if you're willing to play like Matz plus Stripling. You can do whatever you want. So that's not too much of an issue, I don't think. The other side for the Dodgers is purely a talent argument. For all of the risk that there is in Blake Snell, he's still a very good pitcher who's not likely to get lit up, but you just have so many good hitters on the Dodgers. And if you use the bottom of the order with Chris Taylor, Kike Hernandez, Ahmed Rosario, you can get reasonably priced stacks if you need them. If you want to go to the cheap pitching twice, you can get the expensive guys. So I like the offenses here just because of the talent and the fact that neither side's getting much ownership. Dodgers at 4.5%, Padres at 4.5%. So just the upside is really nice.
How would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
Yarbrough last. I guess Snell 1, Padres 2, Dodgers 3, Yarbrough 4. I think you can kind of just make very reasonable cases for any of Snell, Padres, Dodgers.
Okay. All right, we have one game left to get through. I do want to tell you guys that if you haven't signed up yet for the lineup generator, you can still get it for 50% off your first week using the link in the description of this video. It's just going to be $4.48 for your first week. Even after that first week, it's just $8.95 per week. And every single lineup you're going to get in the lineup generator is a long-term plus EV lineup, meaning that over the long haul, these should be profitable lineups. If you just use lineups from the lineup generator every day over the long haul, you should be a profitable player. So check it out if you haven't already. I'll show you. You can choose all stack types. You can choose which stack types you want to run. I usually do all stack types. You can choose which lineups you like to run. You can do chalky, balance, or contrarian. I just do all lineups. I like to get a mix of different types of lineups. I don't lock in any pitchers or batters, but you can if you want to. And then you can just let her rip. It'll show you some lineups. You can choose, do I want to save this lineup or discard it? And since I did a mix of all lineups, you'll see that I'm just going to save 20 real quick. You'll see that we're going to get a mix of chalky to contrarian lineups, balanced lineups, anything in between. The projection is always going to be like top 10 percentile. Every lineup you're going to get is going to project well, but then we're going to get different ranges of ownership. So if I just go through and save 20 lineups here, at the end of your 20 lineups, it'll show you your exposures, and then you can decide, am I happy with these exposures? Do I want to go back, discard some lineups, find some different lineups? It's a really cool tool, so check it out if you haven't done so already. But we're already over, so I'm going to get back to the final game of the slate, which is Seattle at Los Angeles. We've got George Kirby on the mound for the Mariners, Tyler Anderson for the Angels. Any interest in these pitchers, Adam?
Kirby more so than Anderson. It's a scary spot for him. This is a big park downgrade. We saw, yesterday, two very good pitchers both get lit up in Detmers and Castillo. Certainly the risk of that happening again here, but you don't have like any pitching on this slate that doesn't have some sort of, but factor. Burns, it's that he's expensive, and he is in a hitter's park as well. Snell's facing the Dodgers. So Kirby facing the Angels in Anaheim is scary. He's getting 19% ownership, relatively expensive at 10K. He's a very efficient pitcher, which is nice. 23% strikeout percentage, 2.7% walk percentage. So he actually has the second best K minus BB percentage on the slate behind Kenta Maeda, even though his strikeout percentage is like, I don't know, sixth on the slate, probably sixth or seventh. 3.58 xFIP. He's a good pitcher. It is concerning not only the park, but 206 expected ISO to lefties this year, 123 to righties. These pitchers that struggle with left-handed power taking on the Angels in Anaheim is really, really concerning. Rengifo, not a ton of power, but left-handed hitter who's cheap and can hit home runs here and there. Ohtani, obviously best hitter in baseball. Moustakas has power from the left side. Moniak has power from the left side. Dice has some power from the left side. So this team can do damage, and that's not mentioning the righties, Cron, Drury, Renfroe, they have power as well. But it can be a pretty tough lineup for somebody to navigate that does give up power to lefties. So the ownership on Kirby makes sense in that, again, there's not a lot of other stuff that I feel great about either, but definitely a scary spot. Tyler Anderson at 8,300, a much more difficult sell just because you're paying a real salary for somebody that has an 18% strikeout percentage and a 5.5 xFIP this year, facing a bunch of power bats in Anaheim. 174 expected ISO, 348 expected WOBA, two right-handed hitters this year. Much more difficult to get to Anderson than Kirby.
Okay. 720 Red Dog says, bro, why I get a prostate commercial before this stream? I wonder if that is accurate. Greg and I actually talked about the whole, I turned 40, once you turn 40, they suggest you should get your prostate examined. We had that conversation. So I wonder if that is affecting the commercials that we're getting on the channel. That is, but also Adam is right. That's kind of our demographic. There are a lot of guys in the age range where you might need your prostate examined. All right. Bats in this game. You say that you're afraid of the power for the Angels. Are you playing the Angels then?
Yeah, I like the bats here. So everybody likes Seattle. Apparently, they are first in ownership, third in top stack percentage, tied for first with St. Louis in stack scored, just edging out Baltimore. They're a team I've been playing a lot recently. They almost won me a tournament last night. They did win me a tournament last week, and it's just, even in bad matchups, I've been playing them because the whole team outside of Julio Rodriguez is very cheap and has a lot of power. So it just creates that situation where you have a massive ceiling on your lineup because if they happen to do well, they're hitting home runs. And then you have the best one-offs, mini stacks, pitching, whatever it may be around them. Here, it's not even a bad matchup for them. Anderson, like I said, has given up a 174 expected ISO to righties, 348 expected WOBA, only striking him out 17.5% of the time. Rodriguez, Suarez, Murphy, Hernandez, France, Dylan Moore, these guys all can do damage. Cal Raleigh. So they look very good. It's just a matter there of can you differentiate or find ways to differentiate. The Angels are really interesting to me, though, because they are not getting ownership. And I get it. They're dead last in stack score. We have them with a 1% chance of being the top value stack, but that's a little misleading, I think, because there are expensive parts of this lineup, but there are also ways you can balance it out. Shohei Ohtani at 6,700 is obviously really, really expensive. It's warranted, but like Moustakas is only 2,900. Rengifo is only 3,700. Matt Dice is only 3,400. So you can make cheap stacks if you need to, but I also just don't really think you're going to need to on this slate because you have that cheap pitching. So the upside the Angels are giving you here at only 2.5% ownership is really interesting to me. A stack of like Rengifo, Ohtani, Moustakas, Moniak, and then somebody else. I think there's a lot of upside there.
All right. How would you rank the four sides of the game?
Mariners, Kirby, Angels, Anderson.
All right. We made it through the end of the main slate. We've made it through every game that Adam and I are going to talk about this baseball season. But Adam, we're still on this final slate, the final main slate. Who are your three favorite pitchers?
Burns, Nats, I guess Stripling.
Three favorite stacks?
Seattle, Baltimore, St. Louis, like I think has to be the answer. As far as contrarian stacks go, I will go to the Angels.
All right, and then home run pick.
Is Ohtani? I'll go with Gunnar.
Ohtani's not in. Ohtani actually has. We've got a 24% chance of hitting a home run on Ohtani. We've got Gunnar at 24%, like 0.2% lower. So right, both right near the top. So you're going Gunnar Henderson, your final home run call on a show, at least for this baseball season. I'm going to go to Juan Soto, who has a 27% chance of hitting a home run per the top batters tool, just using my usual method here. All right, well, that does it for our final Saturday strategy show. Adam, my understanding is that you've written inspirational speech for to get people through these couple months without you.
Oh yeah, of course.
Do you have any final words for the people?
Appreciate everybody that's watched this season. Obviously, I'll be back for NBA. I'm not going anywhere. So, enjoy the summer. If you're in Baltimore and want to golf or grab drinks, DMs are open. I will have plenty of time.
Perfect. All right. Yeah. Adam's going to have plenty of free time on his hands. So reach out to him if you're in Baltimore. Of course, follow him on Twitter if you don't already at ShipMyMoney DFS. Thank you guys very much for watching. Hit the like if you haven't already done so. And I will catch you later. And Adam will catch you in a couple months.